What's going on, everybody? How you doing? This is Warren Dews. I'm the publisher of the Upstater.com, the Columbia paper, the Ravenna News Herald, and the Greenville Pioneer. As you know, we do this thing. We have a community conversations, and under that umbrella, we have something called Get to Know. We have another thing called Ask the Expert, and then we have something called Meet Your Neighbor. And I believe my new friend that I'm about to introduce you to can check all those boxes. But I'm here today because I met her at a Ravenna Coeymans Selkirk Business Association meeting, and I really fell in love with her heart and her mind about what she's trying to do in her business. So, Fred, tell everybody who you are and what you do.
Hi, so I'm Caelin Gordon-Stacey. I am the farmer and owner behind Flax Hollow Farm in Coeymans, New York here. We grow flowers. That's our big deal is like flower farming. I sell flowers wholesale to a couple of different local florists. I also offer a CSA, which is a community supported agricultural program that members can basically buy in and buy a small crop share of my flowers. And then they receive 6 bouquets throughout the season that they get to pick and choose. We also raise chickens here on our little farm in the Coeymans Hollow, as well as like meat chickens and egg chickens. So yeah, a
So,
little bit
real
about me.
quick, so you worked somewhere. Well, first, let's go back a little bit because you and I started to talk, and we own several newspapers. Our company owns several newspapers, so we live in different parts of the market. And so I actually live in the Berkshires. Today, I happen to be in Granville at one of our papers here in Washington County. But when I mentioned to you that I was in the Berkshires, what what's the connection with you
So
and the Berkshires?
So yeah, when you started talking about the Berkshires, I asked you where you lived because I actually went to boarding school for 2 years in the Berkshires in Williamstown, Massachusetts. So I had a fairly unconventional education. I went to private school for elementary and middle school, a really small school called the Free School in Albany. It is a democratic-based educational system, very independent, very child-led sort of philosophy behind that. So basically, when I got to, middle school, I knew that I didn't just want to go to our local public high school. I really had a passion for art and kind of wanted to push myself to do something beyond that. So I
Mhm.
started applying to boarding schools. I ended up going to Buxton for 2 years, which is located in Williamstown, Massachusetts, which is a little art-focused progressive school. About 100 kids when I was there. Really, really loved that. Would have graduated from there, except that actually my what would have been my junior year of high school, my mom got a job on the island of Guam, the U.S. territory. So we moved to Guam, and we lived on Guam for a full year, which was a huge difference. I mean, it's a tiny island. At its widest, it's 12 miles wide by about 31 miles long. You can drive the entire island in about 2.5 hours. So very, very small place. So we lived there for about a year. While I was there, I homeschooled and mostly worked with my dad. He was running a small organic example farm, teaching local farmers on the island organic practices and different growing techniques. So I spent a
Mhm.
lot of time going and working on the farm with him and educating and teaching people. And then when we came back, I actually enrolled immediately into community college and ended up getting my diploma directly from New York State through Hudson Valley after a year of college.
All right, so you were working somewhere else in 2022. You quit that job. What were you doing?
Yes. So I started working for Curaleaf, which is a medical marijuana grow here in Coeymans, New York.
Okay.
And I worked for them specifically in the propagation area. So working with the plants, doing all of the cloning, growing genetic material for new strains and varieties, seed starting, all of that kind of stuff. And I worked for them starting in about 2019, worked there for about 3.5 years. And the end of the summer of 2022, I quit that job because I really wanted to dedicate myself to building something up for myself. Curaleaf was the only major corporate job I've ever had. It's a
Mhm.
huge national wide company. Otherwise, throughout my life, I've mostly worked for other small organic farmers, small local businesses, doing everything from being like a fish wife, selling fish and slinging fish, to working for Gatherers Granola, selling granola, being like their main farmers market representative. So after about 3.5 years of just kind of in that very corporate structured world, I really knew I wanted to do something that that I could have more control over and that would directly impact my community and felt like I was giving back into that. So I kind of took over a huge section of the family farm and said, hey, I'm going to start growing flowers. This is what I'm going to do.
So it's funny because I sit there and think about all the things you just said, fish and farm and all these other things. A person like me, I walk into a grocery store and it's just there, but all that stuff comes from somewhere. It comes from people like you that's out there doing the things that you do. So I respect that highly. So in 2022, you quit your job and you started doing your own thing. And
Yep.
now I read when you were contemplating at first, you were trying to think if you wanted to do flowers or vegetation or food and things of that nature, right? What made you make the decision to go flowers?
So a lot of it for me, it was, I've grown a lot of things in my life. We've always raised vegetables. Like my dad used to full market garden, used to do the whole farmer's market thing when I was little. We've always raised food for ourselves. And when I first quit, I knew that I wanted to grow stuff using practices I believe in that impact the world and the environment in ways that I think are meaningful. But I wasn't totally sure on what that exact thing for me it was going to be. And I
Mhm.
personally feel like flowers kind of found me other than the other way around. So I'd always grown flowers like in our family garden, just, as something that's pretty and beautiful. Like I said, I went to an art focused boarding school. I've always had that kind of eye, that aesthetic for things. So I've always grown flowers as just sort of something to make me happy. And then in the beginning of 2023, I just started playing around with starting more and more seeds. And I was like, you know what? I really like the flowers. Like, why don't I just dive into this? So
Okay.
last year was when I said, you know what? I'm really gonna take over this part of the field. I'm gonna grow flowers. I'm gonna try and scale it up to a commercial thing and just put myself out there and see what happens. So I grew my first, I would say a little over a quarter acre of flowers. And last summer, I started going around to the different local florists and seeing if they would be interested in doing wholesale with me. And then it just sort of fell into a rhythm where I felt like, this is the thing I should be doing. This is the thing that's really resonating with me. And I feel like me and flowers kind of found each other.
So, question. So, as I mentioned, I'm out here in Granville, and there's a large company out here called Telescope. They don't sell to normal people. They sell to, corporations and like, I don't know all the companies they sell to, but they don't sell just to regular people. You have to be a company. Is that your focus? Are you going to sell just to florists and wholesaler businesses, or can a regular
So
person walk up and buy stuff from you?
So a person can walk up and buy stuff from me. So I am trying to I'm trying to sell both wholesale and retail. I have the scalability to be able to offer to wholesale florists, which is one of the things that I am focused on is trying to build up a wholesale clientele, selling to local florists and stuff like that. But I also want to have a retail space and a retail presence in my community. So like I mentioned earlier, one of the things I'm doing this year is what they call a CSA, which stands for Community Supported Agriculture. It is a system where basically small farmers can sell a portion of their crop for that future season. Before they have a physical item to sell you. So my CSA, a traditional CSA, you would subscribe to, say, in like February, and then you would get a weekly bouquet or a weekly subscription of vegetables. And you kind of get what you get, whatever the farm is producing.
Mhm.
My CSA is a little bit different in it is $150. You receive a punch card. And with that punch card, you're allowed to pick and choose any bouquet you would like costing from $15 to $35. So customers have the freedom to kind of pick and choose, if you really like spring flowers, like daffodils, tulips, that kind of thing, you can use all six of your, punches in the beginning of the spring. Use them
Mhm.
all on that. If you're interested in more fall flowers like dahlias or more mixed bouquets, you can wait until later in the season to use that. So one of the other things I'm going to be doing with that CSA membership is also what I'm calling Friday Flower pop-up. So
Mhm.
we will be having, hopefully, fingers crossed, flower and weather permitting. The goal is to have 2 Fridays out of every month starting in April, where we will do a pop-up flower stand right at the farm where people can come by and pick up flowers, come chat with me, come see the flower field, and that will be sort of our retail, direct to consumer business, as well as trying to do a couple of different farmers markets this summer and stuff. So I'm trying to dip my toes into both the wholesale and the retail market. Like I said, want to have a business where my face and my presence is known here in my community. And, I don't want to just be some phantom farm out there.
I understand. So like one of the things I go to church and sometimes like during the season they get the poinsettias and they buy a bunch of poinsettias and people buy them. Do you do poinsettias? Is that not what you do? Or you?
No, not poinsettias for me. Just they're more tropical based flowers. So
Mhm,
everything that I'm growing is a seasonal flower. Right now, I have a small, what they would call a high tunnel. So it's an unheated greenhouse.
mhm.
So I can't grow year round in that space, but I can extend the season with earlier spring flowers with that, as
Okay.
well as fall flowers. Um, so most of my flowers should start blooming hopefully in the beginning of April, starting with daffodils. Last fall, we put in about 2,500 daffodil bulbs all over the farm. So with many varieties, which is like very exciting. And then with that, we'll then just start coming into more of our seasonal flowers. Like we're going to have snapdragons, cosmos, dahlias, zinnias, nigella, stock, a bunch of different things. I think I'm growing up to 46 varieties of
Oh
flowers
man.
this year. Yeah. So as the season goes on, we should have more and more. And I'm hoping basically to have flowers starting in April and hopefully we'll go through end of September, October, depending on when we get our first hard frost.
So, I'm also a business owner and, I own two restaurants and I know how owning something of your own and being your own boss can be a struggle. A lot of people go, oh, I want to be my own boss, but they don't realize all the work
It's a
behind
lot
it.
of work.
It's a lot of work. So how are you doing all this? I mean, are there grants out there to help you start? Are there things out there that's helping you get your foot in the door?
So for me, well, first off, I have the grace of my parents own our family farm. So
Okay.
as of right now, I don't have to pay rent on that. They are basically letting me use the land to build my business up, which is definitely a privilege, and I'm very lucky to have that. Otherwise, I am basically funding this myself. I took some of my savings out to kind of start this project, and then I built up with the CSA. I've been selling CSAs this winter, which has been really awesome. It's helped me buy some new equipment through my CSA memberships, like a hoop bender, which is going to allow me to grow ranunculus and anemones this spring, which is going to be my first time with that. But otherwise, it's been a lot of work, and it's mostly on me. I'm hoping by next year. So there's a lot of farmer grants and young farmer grants out there. Most
Mhm,
of them do require you to have at least a year of taxable income over $10,000,
mhm.
which last year was very much a experimental year, me kind of feeling this out. So I'm hoping by the end of this year where I'll be in a place where I can set myself up to apply for some grants like that and loans to get some more major equipment, and make some more big investments into like perennials, things like peonies, lilacs, those kinds of flowers that you got to get in the ground and got to give them a couple years to establish themselves.
It's funny because you're saying all these words and all these flowers. I think I need a dictionary to understand some of this some of this
Oh,
stuff.
I learn about new ones all the time. One of the big ones I grew last year, didn't even know what it was until the beginning of the year, which is gladiola, which is a very traditional wedding flower, or funeral flower. They're these really big stalked flowers, and they get like hundreds of little flowers on them. Really gorgeous. But I didn't even know what they were when I first started growing them. My dad just was like, "You got to grow gladiolas. They're such a fun flower," and I was like, "Okay, sure, let's try them out." So it's been a lot of learning for me. There's definitely some new stuff I'm trying this year. Keeping the stuff that worked really well for me last year and then trying to expand and experiment with new things to keep adding to the varieties and stuff we can offer.
So you're doing this thing. You started in 2022 to starting your own thing. In 2023, you started the flower idea. You're going in that direction.
Yep.
You mentioned you did fish or something with your husband and stuff like that. How are you doing this now? Who's helping you? I know your parents are helping you, but are you solo? You have a team of
It's
people?
me. So my dad likes to refer to himself as my number one farm employee, but it's pretty much me. And then my dad helps me as needed. He's like my sort of part-time employee, but otherwise it is mainly me out there in the field, cutting all the flowers, planting all the flowers, putting in all the work and stuff. I'm lucky to have a lovely husband who works full time and can support, the owning of our house, making sure we can eat and all those good things while I really dive and like pour myself into this business and get it established.
So fast forward, where do you see yourself in this business in the next 5 years? What's your hope?
What's my hope? My hope would be to I don't know. I feel like that's like it's 5 years feels so far out. I feel like I have so many goals for just like this year. Um, but I think what I would really like long term, what I want to do is I would love to basically create a multi-generational farm out of my parents' land, somewhere that, is a thriving business, is an agricultural business that can support us financially, but also I can then do the work and impact my community directly. I have a lot of things that, are working in the back of my head where I would love to, continue to see our little town of Coeymans flourish and become a destination, a place that people want to visit. And that's something I really hope that I can help bring over the next 5 years with my business, make us seem attractive, make people want to come here, make it a destination. I think I just said in my newsletter this month, which I sent out at the beginning of the month, um, I said, I can't wait. I think I finished it with basically, I can't wait for all of you to come down for Friday flower pop-ups and come to our little town and check out our other little businesses. Come pick up some flowers with your wife and go get a beer at Railda River.
Right.
Come see what our little town has to offer because it's a really unique and beautiful place. And I've lived here pretty much my whole life, other than the year I lived on Guam and went to boarding school. And I have a lot of love and appreciation for here. And I just want to build something that is a part of this community and is a local small business that, flourishes and can support our family, our farm, and yeah.
So next question before we go, there's a lot of businesses that are doing a lot of things in community. Like you have Wholesome, you have Carver, you have TCI. What makes me think of TCI, I know that they have a program where they work with the local, high school, and they have students that
Mm-hmm.
come straight from high school and start working for TCI. Are you ever thinking about something like that where young people could come and learn from you?
I would absolutely love to do something like that and have young people come and learn with me. So one of the other things that when I quit my corporate job in 2020, one of the things I went back to doing is I was a competitive swimmer as a kid, and I used to work as a swim coach for the Albany Starfish swim team. And when I quit my job, working in the corporate world, I said, you know what, I really need to do something that grounds me and makes me feel happy and feel like I'm contributing and that I'm impacting somebody who's not just me. So I called up my old boss and I said, hey, I want to come back to swim coaching.
Right.
So that's my little part-time job right now in the winter and stuff is I coach swimming and work with kids. And that's something I have a lot of passion for, and something that I would love to continue to see and continue to provide opportunities and educational opportunities for kids to get into like the agricultural business and to the world of agriculture. Because I think it's something in this day and age we don't really think of as like a way to make money or a way to make
Mm.
a living. But there's a lot of opportunity if you have, if you find your niche and you create your own market, there's a lot that can be done with that.
Awesome. So we're about to end this conversation now, and what I want to know, what is the one word or one phrase that describes you in this journey that you're about to be on, or that
Uh,
you're on?
that I'm on, I love to say to myself, the thing that I keep saying to myself is, growing isn't comfortable. You got to make yourself uncomfortable if you want to grow. You got to keep putting yourself out there. You got to keep pushing yourself. And that's the only way you're going to grow into the human you want to be. So whenever I'm feeling really overwhelmed or like, wow, this is, what am I doing next? I just tell myself, you got to make yourself uncomfortable to grow. That's the first step in growing is that uncomfortableness, and it helps you progress and kind of move forward. So that's what I like to tell myself as I'm like getting overwhelmed or feeling like, wow, this is a lot. What am I doing? But you know what? To make big changes in your life, you got to make yourself uncomfortable.
I like that. I like that. So how can people get in touch with you?
So I offer the best way to probably get in touch with me. I'm on both Instagram and Facebook. Try to post on there regularly, give you little tidbits of what's going on to the farm. We also have a website, theflaxhollowfarm.com. Through the website, you can sign up for our monthly newsletter, which usually comes out the first Friday of every month. We also still have CSA memberships available for this season. They'll be available through the end of February. Makes a great Valentine's Day gift. But those are the best ways to get in touch with us is either the website or to check us out on Facebook and Instagram.
Well, listen, I appreciate you taking the time to talk to me and talk to our readers and our community people, and I'm excited for you. And as a media company, our goal is not just to write news and those type of things. Our goal is to help businesses and people with their dreams. So hopefully this helps you in some form or fashion.
Awesome. Thank you so much for this opportunity. I really appreciate it. And it was a pleasure to get to meet you at the RCS Business Association meeting.
No problem. So everybody remember, this is Community Conversations. This is Warren Dew signing off on Community Conversation. This is one of our things called Get to Know. And I think I'm gonna bring my friend back for Ask the Expert, because she's an expert. She talked about a lot of things I didn't know about. So we're gonna come back and break those things down one day. So thank
I
you so
look
much,
forward to
everybody.
it.
Awesome. Talk to you soon.